Hello and welcome to Getaway Day. My name is Gautam. His name is Mason. This is episode 86. And if you enjoy the podcast, subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and YouTube to make sure you don't miss any future episodes. Let us know your thoughts through the YouTube comments, leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, on Twitter and Facebook and TikTok at Getaway Day Pod. Notification bell on YouTube for the notifications. How are you doing today, Mason?
I'm doing great. I am doing absolutely fantastic today.
That is good.
I'm finally letting it sink in about a pretty big free agent signing that may or may not have happened for the Cardinals last week and was officially introduced on Friday. We'll talk about him in a little bit. Just kind of watching the free agent market and trade block just all together, and it's been wild the last week.
Yeah. I've been kind of anxious as a Cubs fan for things to happen, but overall, I feel like the news has been coming out at exactly the right pace. It's been like a steady trickle of new things happening day after day, which is kind of nice. I really like it.
The interesting part to me is that it seems like there are new teams in the mix this year compared to most years. So it's steady news, which we haven't had in years. And it doesn't seem like there's a ton of parity in the teams that are getting free agents. Like, yeah, you could argue that the big market teams are the ones getting the big market players. But then again, the Phillies are going out and spending. The Cardinals are going out and spending. You're seeing the Guardians have signed 2 major league free agents this year. Like the Padres are spending a ton of money. It's really nice to see this change after a full CBA seemingly of just nothing. And you waiting an entire offseason until about late January for your Bryce Harper and your Manny Machado to sign. I
think that was in March, right? Almost March.
It was right before spring training.
Okay, so it might have been February.
So it was in February. But yeah. But that was kind of what kickstarted that offseason. Because was that the same offseason that Greg Holland signed with the Cardinals on opening day?
That might have been 2018.
Okay. But yeah, it's just, this has been so refreshing for me is a fan of baseball to totally see it almost kind of feel like an NFL offseason or an NBA offseason. And even then, I think this might be better because that's all like a 30-day period and then it's done. And we're sitting here, we've kind of had stuff since the middle of November.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and kind of getting back to your point about the big market team spending, I was kind of thinking about the teams that have done the big amounts of spending in the National League specifically, and it's basically all the postseason teams from last year that have improved their teams. And the one thing I haven't seen is big improvements from the fringe teams or the non-contenders. So it's like the rich got richer, and maybe, I don't know how it's going to play out this season, but maybe we'll see the same teams making the postseason again.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point because you've got all these teams that we talked last week about how tanking kind of is starting to look like it's going to start falling to the wayside because you had the 13th worst record getting the 5th best pick in the draft. And you're starting to see some of these new things from the CBA happening for the first time. So it looks like in the next year or two, you're going to see really bad teams go, oh, we're going to have to actually put some money into this to improve. We can't just tank and get a high draft pick and then in 4 years be good. They're going to have to go and actively work for it. Now, the other interesting bit is the length of contracts that we've been seeing this year. A lot of the people that, a lot of the best free agents of probably this entire decade were free agents last year and this year. So if you didn't come to the table this year, and start showing your wallet, you're kind of missing out on a majority of the talent for the next 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years in some cases.
Yeah, and
So
I've heard some sort of things about some owners are kind of grumbling that you got Steve Cohen and the Padres owner Peter Seidler and
and
all these guys going out and spending all this money.
yeah,
John
Middleton.
Middleton with the Phillies; those are like the main guys spending tons of money and kind of leaving the Pirates and the Reds behind. But that's ultimately like that's a good thing that the big spenders are spending big, and I think ideally that would be something that would drive the competition. Those low tier owners, they don't like when people spend more than them because or like go spend like crazy because it just kind of makes them
It
look
shows
bad.
that they can do it and they're not.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, maybe we should get, because I think this will probably come up here a bit later when we talk about the Mets, but like I guess a little precursor to our Mets conversation here in a bit. Steve Cohen is now got a team that is sitting at $345 million before the luxury tax, which the luxury tax after the Cohen threshold is like 90% tax per dollar.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so they're over the threshold of the 293 million by over $50 million.
Yeah. So his luxury tax bill is higher than the overall salaries of 6 different teams. 6. The luxury tax bill. It's nuts. Like that's gonna, I think, probably go a long way. And now that John Middleton and the dude from the Padres are kind of going, all right, I see your insanely high payroll compared to what our current thresholds are set at, and I will call that. And I love it. Like, you're also seeing teams like the Cardinals who are going out and saying, yeah, we kind of have a lot more money to spend this year, so we're going to go out and do it. Like, they're already at the payroll from last year, which was one of the record highs. I think the record high for the Cardinals at 163. And they're still trying to sign more guys. So.
Yeah. Okay, so hold that thought. We'll surely get back to it when we talk about the Mets. Today we're going to get you caught up from everything that's happened since last Tuesday when we last podcasted. There's been plenty of trades and free agent signings. The biggest one, Aaron Judge breaks the position player record for AAV. He gets a $360 million deal for 9 years to go back to the Pinstripes. So he cared about his legacy, and he's going to stay Yankee probably for the rest of his career here.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing to me out of this whole thing, well, maybe not the biggest, like the 4th biggest thing out of this entire thing with Judge for me, 40 million AAV. Is the first time a position player has broke even like 36, right? Wasn't 35 or was 37 the previous high?
Well, for position players, the record was Mike Trout's. I think it was around like 36 or something.
Okay. Yeah. So this jumped it all the way to 40. Yep. And Judge is absolutely phenomenal. He deserves every dollar that he got out of it. Is in my opinion, some of it's probably going to end up being back pay for stuff that he's already done for the Yankees. But 9 years from now, you're not going to care about that. Like 9 years, 360 is a ton, especially for a guy who's 31 and whatever. But he's deserved every single bit of that contract. So that's a great signing for the Yankees to get that done and get him back. They need to put the C on his jersey, and then they need to go ahead and start building all of the signage for when they retire number 99.
Yeah. And I'll just talk about the Yankees for a second. So the Yankees are kind of like in a weird place right now. They're definitely going to be trying to compete, but they sort of feel like they're in transition phase right now between the Yankees that we've seen the last like 5 years and whatever their new team's going to be. They've got prospects coming up. They've got like Anthony Volpe super top prospect for them. Probably going to be making his debut this year. It's going to be like a new era of Yankees baseball, but Aaron Judge will be there for that era and beyond. So, and the one thing about the contract I'll say is they had to pay it. Like there was no choice. This one's not discounted at all. And it's not a situation like the Turner deal and the Bogarts deal that we're going to talk about today, where they stretch it over like extra years to reduce the AAV. This is not that case because he's making $40 million a year.
Yeah. No, they had to give this money to get it done. The Giants, I think, had an equal offer. And he ultimately decided to go back to New York. But yeah, I mean, this was something that Hal had to do. If Hal didn't do this, I would have been mad. And I'm pretty staunch. I hate the Yankees. So, you know.
The Yankees are so similar to the Cardinals in almost every way.
I know, and that's kind of why I hate them. The only difference is that they will go out and spend the money that they have, and the Cardinals won't. So I actually do really respect the Yankees for that point.
We all wish we were Yankees fans, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I just wish we were more successful in the post-1950 era than the Yankees. Did I just say that out loud and recorded? Oh, my bad. Yeah, but no, and then the Yankees aren't completely out of it yet. They're still looking at some guys, and we'll talk about them here in a bit too. But
sure. All right. So the other really big trade that went down this week was the Sean Murphy trade, which I want to start calling the catcher trade because there were 3 different catchers moving teams in this deal.
Do we really consider Manny Pena a catcher at this point?
He wears a catcher's mitt.
I mean, I wear a baseball cap. That doesn't make me a player.
Poor guy. So we'll start with the Braves. I'll explain the deal, and then we can talk about it here. Sean Murphy moves from Oakland to the Braves. The Brewers get William Contreras and a prospect pitcher, Justin Yeager, from the Braves. And they also get a relief pitcher from Oakland, Joel Payamps. And then the A's get Manny Pena from the Braves, Kyle Muller, Freddie Tarnok, Royber Salinas, all pitchers at various states of the minor leagues or big league ready like Muller. And then they got Esteury Ruiz, 24-year-old center field super speedster from the Brewers, who was actually part of the Josh Hader trade this past season.
Yeah.
So there's a lot here to unpack. Maybe we go team by team and see what we think about it for each side. So the Braves got Sean Murphy. They got their guy. He's probably a top 5 catcher in the game. Great defensive player. Got offensive upside. Probably getting out of that Oakland basement that they play in is going to help his numbers a little bit, and obviously he's a great catcher, so can't really be mad at the Braves about this trade.
Yeah, if I'm the Braves, I'm really happy about this. Or a Braves fan, I'm really happy about this. I mean, yeah, it kind of sucks giving up William Contreras, who we'll talk about in a minute, but now you've got Sean Murphy, who is probably a top 3 catcher in the league.
Top 5 minimum, yeah.
Yeah, top 5 minimum, arguably top 3. And he's as close to a marathon catcher as I think you can get now, isn't he? Like being behind the plate, probably 100 games, 100 plus a year. So
now they won't even have to do it. They won't have to marathon him anymore because they've got a credible second catcher in Travis d'Arnaud. So they can switch off with DH, get him off his feet, get his bat in the lineup if they need. I mean, it's a great spot to be.
He played 148 games last year, and they were, let's see, 116 of them were at catcher. So yeah, yeah, I love this move. I do kind of wonder how they're going to use him and Darno together, because both of them are kind of guys that I want in the lineup more often than not.
I think one of them is going to be the DH a lot.
You think so? Darno kind of feels like that guy.
Because last year they wanted to get Contreras' lineup, bat in the lineup a lot. He DH'd a lot while Darno was catching. So that's probably something that would continue with Murphy.
That's a good point. Yeah, and they have 2 more years of control on Sean Murphy.
3.
Well, I guess I meant after this year. Like you're trading for this year and then 2 more. So it's not like this is a short-term trade that you're giving up a lot for it, and then you're about to lose the guy again if you don't sign him to a long-term deal. So this is fantastic if you're the Braves. So, but then moving to the Brewers, or should we talk about the A's first?
Yeah, so let's talk about the A's first. So the A's, they got a bunch of prospects in return for the most part.
And
they got Manny Pena because they need a catcher. I guess they got to have someone that stands behind the plate.
Well, so Manny Pena is likely going to be a little bit what Stephen Vogt was last year.
He's a backup.
He's a backup. He's going to be there to kind of assist Shea Langoliers in his adjustment to the big leagues. And Manny Pena, I made fun of him earlier. He is a solid
totally
backstop.
Fine backup catcher, yeah.
Yeah, like you could start him 60 games a year and not be too bad. Like,
and he's not a horrible hitter either. So I don't just hate Manny Pena.
He's just a former Brewer, so I have to hate on him. That's really all it is.
Yeah. So we'll talk about the guys I got from the Braves first. So Kyle Muller, he used to be a pretty shiny kind of name. Hasn't really panned out too well in the major league level, but the lefty, I mean, he could be something. He's only 25 now, and he's 6'7".
Yeah, he's got about 49 innings in the big leagues, and he's not fared horribly. I mean,
he's got a big issue with walking batters. He's had like very high walk rates.
Yeah, that's it.
So they got some work to do with him, but you can see the potential there for sure.
Yeah, and he's what, 25. So he's still got a couple of good years left in him. They just gotta figure out what's going on with his mechanics there, causing him to walk so many batters, because that's really, I mean, he's had walk issues all throughout the minors, but they basically doubled in his 49 innings in the majors. So there's something there that they could fix, and we'll see if Oakland can unlock it. I'm guessing he'll be in their rotation to start the year, because who else they got?
Right. The 2 prospects they got in return, also from the Braves, Freddie Tarnok and Royber Salinas. I can't say I know a whole lot about either of these guys, but you got anything? I'm not going to pretend I know anything.
Salinas is a very, very young pitcher. He made it to high A last year. He pitched about 108 innings or 109 innings total last year. So not really sure what we're going to get out of him yet. Although his strikeout numbers in the low minors were nuts, like 19.77 Ks per 9 in A ball and 12.97 Ks per 9 in high A. So
they might have understand it's a sort of a projection pick, but he's obviously a long ways away. I think Tarnok's quite a bit closer to the major league level now. We'll talk about maybe the most important piece of making this deal worth it for the A's, and that's Esteury Ruiz, who is a very interesting prospect because he doesn't hit the ball very hard. He's extremely fast. He had a 447 OBP in the minor leagues last year at AA and AAA. And he stole 85 bases in 99 attempts. So this guy is going to get on base and he's going to run. And they also think he can play center field, which a year after they traded for Christian Pache, they are kind of not showing much faith in him, which is totally understandable because he didn't really play very well. So I think Ruiz is going to get a shot to show if he can, be a big league regular player, not just a guy that only has the one skill of stealing bases. I'm not sold that he is that guy, but Oakland clearly thinks he is by making this deal.
Yeah, and he did have a quick cup of coffee with both the Padres and the Brewers last year, and didn't really show much in his first cup of coffee there, but he's definitely got 17 games, 36 plate appearances. So yeah, he was a pinch hitter mostly. But yeah, so he could have something there. And if you're Oakland, I mean, I'm not thrilled with the return that they got. Like,
yeah, it's not.
It seems like exciting. They could have got more. I don't want to say sure things because nothing's sure with young players, but I feel like you could have got something that was more than a former high prospect pitcher, 2 low prospect pitchers, Manny Pena, and then Christian Pache 2. Like, I feel like you could have got more than that.
Don't call him that.
I mean, that's kind of what he is, though.
I hope not.
Yeah.
And then on the Brewers side, what did they get? They got William Contreras from the Braves, Joel Payamps, relief pitcher, and then low-level minors pitcher Justin Yeager. So this one's really interesting to me because Brewers basically they basically, if you look at what William Contreras did last year with the bat, he would be the best hitter on the Brewers this year.
Yeah, he 278, 354, 506 with 2.4 WAR, 20 home runs, and that's in 376 ABs. Yep. That's it. That's nuts.
He got very legit power. He's still a really young player. Maybe he's still working on some stuff on the catching side of his game. People aren't 100% sold on him. Maybe that's the reason the Braves were not interested in hanging on to him. But I think the Brewers are going to be happy enough with his bat, and he's got 5 years of control. That's exactly the type of player that the Brewers love.
And with Narvaez being a free agent, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so
they needed a catcher.
The Brewers had to go out and do something because they don't really have catchers in their minors or in their system right now that are going to thrill you is a major league backstop. And so having Contreras, even if he's not a phenomenal catcher right now, they'll keep working to develop him. And I mean, they developed Yasmani Grandal. I have no concerns about them being able to tell Contreras how to catch a ball.
Hey, but Yasmani Grandal is like a good defensive catcher.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Maybe the Brewers did some of that. They turned Narvaez into a better defensive catcher, too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, they developed these catchers that were good catchers. So I think they could take William Contreras and turn him into a good catcher. I wasn't trying to knock Yasmani Grandal. That was supposed to be a compliment.
It kind of sounded like you were throwing mad shade around.
No, that was supposed to be a compliment. I apologize if it came across a different way. But just overall, speaking about this deal, I love it for the Brewers. I hate it for the Brewers, but it's an amazing deal for the Brewers. I hate the Brewers. It's a great deal for the Brewers.
Yes.
There you go.
They gave up just one player in this deal, and they come away with, a guy that's going to slot into their bullpen, a prospect, and then a starting catcher. And they gave up one very questionable prospect
that they got back in a trade for Josh Hader. So essentially, you traded Josh Hader, got a return that was not terribly thrilling, and then you've turned it now into William Contreras, Joel Payamps, Justin Yeager, half a year of Taylor Rogers, and they still have like one or two guys from the Hader deal.
There were like two other prospects from that deal too,
Yeah, so now they're making the Hader trade actually look smart.
I think the Hader trade was kind of smart at the time too, but
Well, yeah, but now it looks really smart.
yeah,
So
and no surprise because Matt Arnold's pretty smart. They don't even need David Stearns.
yeah.
Okay, but how does this affect the catcher market? So before Murphy got traded, Wilson Contreras signed with the Cardinals, and the Cardinals we found out afterwards they were very hot and heavy with the A's, and they were probably the team that was closest to making the deal before Contreras signed with them.
Yeah, and so Contreras got 5 years, 87.5 mil from the Cardinals, which is a ton of money. It shows a lot of faith in Wilson Contreras. So with what you just said about them being in on Sean Murphy, and I'll explain kind of what the offers there were. Wilson Contreras was not necessarily a second choice. It was kind of 1A, 1B. It's which one is going to pan out first and cost us the least in our future. And so the Cardinals had offered, well, I guess maybe I'll tell you what the A's asked for first. So the A's asked the Cardinals for Lars Nootbaar, Brendan Donovan, who just got third in the NL Rookie of the Year, Gordon Graceffo, right?
I think that's what they were asking for.
Was it just the three, or was there a fourth?
I think it was just the three.
Okay, so they were asking for those three. The Cardinals said no. We will let you have two of the four following players: Dylan Carlson, Nolan Gorman, Juan Yepes, and Alec Burleson. All guys who have been incredibly, incredibly high, like top 5 prospects in the Cardinals organization here in the last couple of years. All of those guys have been in the MLB top 100. Maybe not Yepes, actually. He wasn't in the top 100, but the other 3 were. And the A's said no to that. And I'm a little confused because they originally were asking for 2 major league pieces that ultimately, long term, I like the 4 guys the Cardinals offered up better than I do Newton Donovan. Like Newton Donovan, I love. Glad the Cardinals didn't get rid of him. But it kind of feels like the upside is higher on the other 4. So it was a little weird to me that they didn't get that deal done. And then instead got Manny Pena, Esteury Ruiz, Kyle Muller, Freddie Tarnok, and Royber Salinas. It just, those 2 feel completely different. Like you could have had 2 very recent top 100 guys to go immediately into your major league roster that have 5 years of control left each. Unless you take Carlson, then it's 3 years of control left, or 4 maybe. And instead you get a whole bunch of lottery tickets.
Yeah, I think that whole deal hinges on Esteury Ruiz, and clearly he was like the thing that they wanted the most, and that's why the Brewers became involved in this deal in the first place, because they could have made the deal that was just straight up Sean Murphy for William Contreras or something more similar to that, but they didn't want another catcher because they've got plenty of catchers in their system. That's like their
strength. With Tyler Soderstrom, Shea Langoliers, like they are not hurting for catchers in their system.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. But
Wilson.
I was going to say, back to kind of how it affects the rest of the market. I mean, Wilson Contreras just got one of the bigger catcher deals of recent memory. Obviously not the top. That goes to JT Realmuto by a considerable margin here. But Wilson Contreras coming from the north side of Chicago down to St. Louis, which is not a transition that a lot of people make. Those are kind of 2 teams that if you play for one, you usually don't go play for the other. Dexter Fowler did it. I guess there's a lot more. Jason Hayward. I was starting to realize there's a lot more examples here than I thought there were, because you've also got Lester and Lackey. Like, maybe it's kind of more common than I thought. But like Wilson Contreras knew nothing but the Cubs organization since he was 16. and he's kind of taught to hate the Cardinals. But Ali Marmol and John Mozeliak went down, met with him, had a great conversation with him. He put up an article in the Players Tribune. Highly suggest you guys go read it. He is incredibly excited to be coming to St. Louis. And to be honest, if I'm a Cardinal fan, I am going to love this guy about half as much as I love Yachty. But if you know how much I love Yachty, that's an awful lot. So this is a big deal for the Cardinals. They went and spent
they finally got a catcher that can hit for the first time in a decade.
You shut it.
It's true.
I mean, it's true, but you shut it.
I got to get something in here. It's a sad time for me.
But, and then we had a couple other catchers that, and well, I guess before I go to the other catchers, I need to hear your thoughts on Wilson here.
I mean, he got a great deal, and I mean, he gets to play for a winning team now. I mean, it's happy for him, and he's going to murder the Cubs for the next 5 years.
Yeah, that's true.
But on the Cubs, actually, like the Cubs made it pretty clear that he was not part of their plan. They didn't really lose him in free agency. Like, it's been pretty clear that he was not going to re-sign. It was kind of both sides. Cubs, I think, are prioritizing a defensive first catcher right now, and he was not part of their plan.
Yeah. So it's I imagine it will be kind of tough watching him play against you, but yeah, he wasn't in the plan. It kind of made sense that he was going to go somewhere else, and he had a lot of suitors. The Cardinals very much needed a catcher, and they made sure that they got their guy. So it'd be exciting. But yeah, so a couple other catchers that were on the market that are no longer. Both went to teams who were kind of in the market for both Sean Murphy and Wilson Contreras. So we're now starting to see that second tier of catchers come off the board now that both Murphy and Contreras are gone. That would be Christian Vasquez, who signed a 3-year, $30 million deal with the Twins, and Mike Zunino, who signed a 1-year, $6 million deal to the Cleveland Guardians. If you're the Twins and the Guardians, are you happy with your consolation prize or no?
Yeah, I don't know. Were the Twins ever in on Contreras? I don't think they actually were. But
I think they were checking in. I don't think they were going to give him the money, but I think
I didn't see any rumors about that. But yeah, I think you're happy enough with Vasquez. They've got another catcher in Jeffers too, so they've got a 1-2 punch now, and Vasquez got the great defense, kind of the leadership qualities that you like with the player. I mean, that's a good deal. And there was a lot of teams that wanted Vasquez because once you get past Vasquez, there's a major drop off, I think. He was kind of the line. Like, there is obviously a gap between Contreras and Vasquez, but once you get past him, then it's kind of iffy whether any of the remaining guys are even starters.
Yeah, it's like now we're talking Mike Zunino, Gary Sanchez, Omar Narvaez. So
yeah. So, and Zunino probably will be sort of a part-time catcher. He's another defensive whiz who's got major power. So I kind of like this for the Guardians because I keep talking about how the Guardians need some power hitters. Zunino is kind of that guy. He's going to strike out 35% of the time, but he's probably going to hit like 25 homers if you give him 450 plate appearances.
Yeah, and he's coming off an injury-shortened season, so this is going to be kind of a, can you show you're healthy and can still hit the ball hard and catch, and then if so, you'll get a probably couple-year deal next year. So yeah. I kind of like it for Zunino as well. Yeah, there's tons of teams that are still out there needing catchers.
Absolutely and true, yeah.
There is not many left.
No, it's getting gross out there.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears here to one of the biggest signings that's happened, which is Xander Bogaerts ditching Boston and going where the money is in San Diego, $280 million for 11 years. This is probably the most shocking deal that's actually happened in this free agency period. I don't know about you. What do you think?
Yeah, I was not expecting that. To be honest, the Padres were both quiet and loud at the exact same time because
they were trying to get Judge, then they were trying to get Turner, they were making massive deals.
Let me explain myself. they were in on everyone, offering ridiculous amounts of money. So they were loud. But at the same time, it seemed like nobody ever actually thought they had a chance at doing anything. And so there weren't very many rumors about him. It was just kind of like, hey, the Padres made an offer. And then you hear what the offers are, and you're like, what in the world? Why was this not talked about more? And then they get Xander Bogaerts to be shortstop this year, $280 million contract. They have a $340 million contract for another shortstop who's going to be out for the season with a PED suspension. But, or is it half a season?
It's only like 30 more games.
It's only 30 more games. So now you've got two shortstops and Manny Machado, who shortstop probably shouldn't be. We'll keep him at third. He's really, really good there. But could be another shortstop. You got Ha-Sung Kim, who's a good defensive shortstop.
Really good, yeah.
You've got Jake Cronenworth, who's a really good second baseman. Where the hell are you going to play him? All these guys. This is a great problem to have, but it is not something that I thought they were going to get in on. And then now all of a sudden the Padres are just like, here's a bunch of money, here's a bunch of money, here's a bunch of money. They want to get over this hump.
Yep. This owner does not care. He's very similar to Steve Cohen. Maybe he's not as rich, but he wants to win at basically any cost. So I guess from a baseball standpoint, though, getting Bogaerts in the lineup, that's a big deal in the present here, because we talked about how the Padres sort of had some black holes near the bottom of their lineup. This just makes it so much deeper. And I think the positions are not going to be too big of a deal. So Soto can move over to the left field. Tatis, when he comes back, will play right field. Machado at third. Bogaerts at short. You move Kim over to second, and then you move Cronenworth over to first. I think it kind of works.
Where'd you say Soto was?
He moves to left.
Left? Okay. And who's DHing?
But he's still got an open spot.
Damn. Can we get Eric Hosmer back? No, that's...
Where are the Eric Hosmer rumors up in here?
But no, this is just... this team is crazy. I love it. Big fan of what they're doing. I really want them to win a World Series here in the next... before this core is gone. Just got to see if they can keep that rotation together and producing. I
mean, honestly, it's smart because Machado has an opt-out after 2023. So at the least, they're protecting if he goes somewhere else and gets another big deal, then they've got a guy that's in-house to replace his superstar talent.
But then at the same time, you're kind of protecting to maybe get him to stay with the hometown discount of the current contract, because you've got a phenomenal team around him. And that's one of the better chances to win a World Series, which I think is kind of at the top of his list right now. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, but in a good way.
Right. Yeah. I don't see there's no problem here.
Yeah.
Okay. Meanwhile, the Red Sox fan base is just beside themselves right now. They just lost another superstar player from their team.
And there's still not been an extension for Devers.
Yeah. If we can just kind of open up some old wounds that are probably still open. Why is Mookie Betts not a Boston Red Sox player? It makes no sense.
Stupidity, lack of foresight, greed.
Yeah, all those things. And the same thing can be applied to Xander Bogaerts. They didn't do what the Yankees did with Judge. They didn't pony up for their superstar. And it's not even like, I mean, the Padres kind of did blow them out of the water, but they weren't even close. The reported offer was like a 6-year deal for Bogaerts. He got an 11-year deal. So he should be in, why would he take that deal? There was zero chance he was going to come back if that's the best they could offer.
Yeah, I don't know. And it's not like that team is spending a lot of money elsewhere. JD Martinez is now off the payroll. Xander's now off the payroll. They don't have starting pitching, really. They got Chris Sale, but he's hurt all the time. So you would think that you would pony up some more money to protect yourself there. Like, who's their best player now? Alex Verdugo?
Well, Devers.
Well, Devers, but he's not going to be there after next year. So who's their best player going into 2024? Alex Verdugo?
I mean, they got Trevor Story too.
Yeah, he wasn't really all that great last year.
Alex Verdugo is not a very good player, to be honest. Like that, he's not great.
So you're proving my point.
Yeah,
they have a bad team.
It's not good. Yeah,
yeah. I don't understand how you're in a market that big, and you just seemingly do not care.
It's almost like I don't know if I can blame it on the baseball decision makers. Is this just an ownership thing where they're somehow being hamstrung and they have some much smaller like budget than we all think as fans they should be having, being Boston?
I mean, maybe, but then I don't know. It just feels weird because they did go out and spend $122 million this week on Masataka Yoshida and Kenley Jansen. Both great signings, in my opinion. Like, you get 2 years of Kenley Jansen to help kind of solidify a bullpen that has been less than bad for a while.
Since they won the World Series, right?
Yeah, their bullpen was kind of going head to head with the Phillies bullpen for being the worst in the majors. But then kind of the rest of their roster's lacking too. Like, they don't have starting pitching. They don't really have many hitters left.
They got holes everywhere.
Yeah. But so they did go out and get Masataka Yoshida, who is a center fielder, right fielder, that's coming over from Japan.
He might be more of a corner outfielder, yeah.
Yeah, but he played for the Oryx Buffaloes, if I remember correctly, over in Japan. And the dude is, I think the best comp is maybe Luis Arraez. I think you and I were talking about this the other day, right?
I was going to say Stephen Kwan, but yeah, same idea. Makes like a ridiculous amount of contact.
Walks a
lot. Yeah.
But no power.
So the power, I mean, he did slug over 500 in Japan, and he hit over 20 home runs. So maybe there's some more juice in that bat that we just don't know how it's going to translate, I guess.
Yeah, I think if you look at how bats typically translate from Japan to here, typically you lose a little power and you lose a little on average. Not a ton necessarily, but enough that makes it not... You're not replacing Xander Bogaerts' power there. So it's not like you're doing a 1-for-1 swap. You're definitely replacing his average and his production there. Not a problem. Love that. But it does feel like this is a team that needs to go out and supplement the Masataka Yoshida signing with another good higher power position player. And
I was going to say they urgently have a major hole at shortstop right now. They need to sign Dansby Swanson, for example.
Well, and they said that they're comfortable moving Trevor Story back to short, even with his arm strength being basically gone.
I'm not comfortable with that.
Well, you're not, but you're smart.
I'm not the Red Sox, yeah.
So I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. Similar to I think the Red Sox and Cubs are in very similar boats here. Maybe the Cubs are even in a worse situation because they don't even have a Rafael Devers. They don't have any star power.
The Cubs started from a worse point and kind of followed in the same footsteps.
Yeah, so the two moves that they've made this offseason in a vacuum, they're pretty solid. You get Jameson Taillon, who signed this past week, $68 million for 4 years. He's a solid mid-rotation guy. And then they also signed Cody Bellinger, who we talked about him last week, but he's essentially a reclamation project that you can't bank on him being anything good. We just don't know. But beyond that, they haven't done anything. They've got supposedly lots of money to spend, but they just have holes all across the diamond. Infield, outfield, starting pitcher.
Catcher now.
Catcher is a big problem, yeah. So
and they didn't go out and get Murphy. They didn't go out and get Vasquez. So they're not setting themselves up to succeed this year, at least it seems.
It's at this point, it's becoming very difficult to see how this offseason for the Cubs would be a success unless they can land Carlos Correa and maybe access the trade market somehow. But it's not looking good right now if you're a Cubs fan.
Yeah, and I kind of want to bring one other team into this as well, because there's three teams that all seem to be in the exact same spot. The other one is the San Francisco Giants. 2 years ago, they had a Cinderella season, were phenomenal. They won the division with a whole bunch of guys in their mid-30s.
Yeah.
Then they lost Buster Posey to retirement, and everyone else
all their
just
old guys
regressed.
came back to earth, kind of.
And they had a solid rotation still kind of last year, at least at the top with Logan Webb. Let's see, Gosman had already left. Who'd they fill it back up with? Can't remember now.
They had a whole bunch of guys. I mean, this past season was not nearly as.
Was it really just Logan Webb that was the good one, and then everyone else was just kind of bleh?
I mean, they had Rodon. He was really good.
Oh, right, Carlos Rodon. But then Rodon had opted out, so he's gone. You still never really replaced Buster Posey. They seem to not trust Joey Bart, and he's not really giving them a reason to trust him. So they've been rocking with the guy that used to be in the Reds.
Casale. He's a free agent, actually.
Oh. Kurt Casale to the Cubs?
Yeah, I don't mind it.
But yeah, so the Giants were a team that was struggling last year, and now they've lost their ace. They've lost their catcher. They did go out and sign a right fielder I think was a really good signing in Mitch Haniger. Love that signing. Apparently Kurt Casale finished the year last year in Seattle.
Yeah, he got traded, I think.
But then the Giants were in on Judge. They missed out. I think they're in on Correa.
It seems that way, but we don't know.
But even if they get Correa, this isn't a team that's set up to succeed right now.
Yeah, but definitely for both the Cubs and the Giants, adding Correa, that does a lot. It's a big step in the right direction.
Yeah.
It gets a lot of things going.
Yeah, but then, if the Pirates got Correa, you could say the same thing. It's just a devil's advocate. Obviously, the Cubs and the Giants would be better than the Pirates if in a vacuum you only added Correa. But the Giants did go out and get a couple of starting pitchers on 2-year deals for $25 million each with Sean Manaea and Ross Stripling. That's definitely going to help replace Johnny Cueto and some of these other low end starters. But I don't know. It seems like they've got a lot of money and they're trying to do something with it, and it's just not panning out. So that's where they differ from the Red Sox and the Cubs. But all three teams are kind of in the same spot. They should be good. They're teams that should probably have solid-ish farm systems. They should be spending a lot of money. They should be tempting big free agents to come play for them. And none of them are. I just don't get it.
Yeah, well, we don't have the full story, and the two major shortstops have still not signed yet, so that's going to determine a lot about what we're saying about these three teams now, I feel like.
I don't think it's going to change what we're saying about the Red Sox because they're not rumored to really be in on them. I think they were maybe rumored to be talking to Dansby today.
That's what I thought, yeah.
But even then, out of those two, I feel like you should be trying to court Carlos Correa first. He's the better player out of the two. It would show your investment, or it would show your commitment to your team. Probably help tempt Devers to stay if you were to go out and get someone like Correa. But I don't know. I'm not Chaim Bloom.
Yeah. Okay. So here's a team that we have no gripes about how much they're spending. They're just spending on everybody. They brought in Verlander last week. We're talking about the Mets here. And they just followed that up by signing Jose Quintana for $26 million 2 years. They re-signed Brandon Nimmo for 8 years and 162 million. Brought in David Robertson, Kodai Senga, the Japanese pitcher, signed him for 5 years and 75 million. So, this is what we were talking about up top with the Mets just having no regard for the the limits that many of the teams are putting in place for themselves. The Mets do not care about that. Steve Cohen does not care. He's doing whatever it takes to make the baseball team as good as it can be.
Yeah. Yeah. So the Mets in this offseason lost DeGrom, lost Chris Bassett, and did they lose one other starter?
They lost Taijuan Walker as well.
And Taijuan Walker. They've replaced them with Justin Verlander, a seemingly rehabilitated and really good Jose Quintana.
Oh, gosh.
Kodai Senga. Like, if I'm the Mets, that's a phenomenal turnaround. Like, it looked like everything would implode when you lost both Bassett and DeGrom. And somehow you've taken two big losses and turned it into what I think is a net positive, because Taijuan Walker, I would argue Quintana's better. And then Senga, if he can do what he did over in Japan here, probably replaces Bassett. And Verlander is the closest thing you're going to get to DeGrom production. So, like, that ain't a bad offseason. Then you get David Robertson for your bullpen, Brooks Raley for your bullpen. Now your pitching staff is looking really, really solid. And then the confusing one
is the Nimmo one's the interesting one, because besides the Bogaerts deal, I feel like this was the one that surprised me. Just the fact that this guy that's never played more than 92 games other than 2 times in his career gets an 8-year deal. The guy has not stayed healthy, and I mean, obviously he's been good when he has actually been on the field, but there's a lot of a risk that they're taking on with this deal, my opinion.
So he has played, let's see, what's 608 minus 32? Be 576. Is that right?
You're asking me to do math live on the podcast?
Yes.
That's unacceptable.
He has played 59.25% of the games that have been played by the Mets since he debuted in not since he debuted, since he started playing regularly in 2017. 59%. So he did get mostly a full 2020 shortened season. Oh, actually, that's a good point. I kind of just messed up my numbers. It's a bit higher than that because of 2020. So he's sitting at about 62% availability, and he just got an 8-year deal. You're basically looking at him playing just over 90 games this year. If you're kind of looking at that as an average, like, yeah, he played 150 last year, but I wouldn't be confident in his availability staying long term.
I'm not confident, but the Mets don't seem to mind.
And then you give him 162 mil. Like, I mean, he's really productive when he's on the field. So, yeah. If you think he's going to be on the field every day, yeah, that's probably a drop in the bucket, and you're probably getting your money back and then some.
Right. It's not from an AAV perspective. It's not backbreaking at all. It's just over 20 million per year.
Yeah,
so you can definitely survive that. I guess it's another situation where they've just stretched it over so many years just to lower the hit on the luxury tax payroll.
That could be.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it doesn't really seem to make sense. Like, a 5-year deal, while probably appropriate, still just from an injury standpoint feels a little bit of a risk. But then again, Uncle Steve does not care about money. The dude's worth $10 billion.
I think it's 17 billion now.
He's worth $17 billion. And he's only spending $400 million on his team this year.
Yeah.
For payroll.
And let's never forget the the thing we should always remember about baseball teams is they never go down in value. He's making money every day.
Yeah. And they profit every year. So it really isn't going to mess with them too much. So, but yeah, so the Mets are just continuing to impress me with what they're doing. Uncle Steve is a little bit brash, and he rubs some people the wrong way. But what he's doing for baseball right now is kind of what has needed to happen for a long time. I mean, he's coming out here and challenging the Phillies and the Padres to go out and spend ridiculous amounts of money. The Dodgers already do spend a ridiculous amount of money. Granted, they could spend more. But I think we're starting to see a change for the better, all caused by Uncle Steve.
I very much hope so. I think competition is the way you fix the problems with, why baseball is the way it is right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got a few more moves to get through. One of the guys that the Mets lost in free agency, Chris Bassett, is heading to Toronto to be the Blue Jays' number 3 starter. He's getting $63 million for 3 years. I love this move for the Blue Jays because they kind of needed one more starter that they could rely on. They've got their 2 studs up top in Manoah and Gosman. Now they've got they don't need Chris Bassett to be an ace, even though he's probably realistically like a number 2 or number 3 starter. He can just do that, and they'll be perfectly happy with it.
Yeah, and yes, you still have a couple of question marks down at the bottom of the rotation. Yusei Kikuchi, where's he going to be playing? Hopefully not in the rotation based on last year. But this definitely does go a long way to making sure that you have some protection there, can compete in this AL East, because this is not going to be an easy division yet again. I mean, the Yankees seem to be spending some money. They went and got Aaron Judge back. They're potentially in on Rodon. They brought back Rizzo. Like, this is a Yankees team that's not going away. The Red Sox are probably out of it, but this Orioles team is getting better. This Rays team is always good. Like, you got to get protection for your rotation there, and their bullpen is just fine. So, I really like that deal. Only $21 million a year. It's pretty solid. Doesn't really mess with your luxury tax there too much. So, yeah, I really like it. And then it does give them, well, it doesn't give them. They still have 3 catchers that are in need of some roster space. They could potentially go out and trade for another starter as well for the back end of that rotation.
And another big need that they have is getting a left-handed bat, in my opinion. So I don't remember if we talked about this last week, but they did sign Kevin Kiermaier also.
We did not.
They do have. They have a left-handed bat that will play center field most likely for them, and that helps them.
Is it a bat, or is it just a mannequin that stands in the box?
Yeah, probably that, but it's not the worst mannequin in the world to have, right?
That's true.
He runs around center field and catches all the balls.
It is a better mannequin than Raimel Tapia.
Yes, 100%.
So
I don't hate that move, considering how good the Blue Jays lineup is. They can afford one guy that's below average.
Well, yeah, and with him being an upgrade over Tapia, I think it's a really, really good signing. It's just one of those that you don't want that to be your only left-handed bat, because that's essentially just having another right-handed bat.
Yeah, I don't know who that is, because we shouldn't forget that they did trade Teoscar Hernandez, so they are missing one bat in their lineup from last year.
Yeah.
Okay, let's finish up with these bad teams that are making some moves here. So the A's, they've signed 2 bench guys to be starters essentially, in Jace Peterson and Aledmus Diaz, who both got 2-year deals, I think. I think this is just a situation where they said, hey, we'll let you play every day in the first half, and we'll give you a 2-year deal to do it. And they said, sure, sign me up. We've been bench guys for a long while now. We want to play. And now they get their chance.
Yeah, and they've both had really good flashes here in the last couple of years. So if they can manage to do something for the A's, they become trade bait at the deadline, potentially get you a piece in return to help kind of accelerate that rebuild for when they move to Vegas. So yeah, I kind of like that from both sides. I do wish the A's would actually like try, but you know,
at least they're spending a little money. I don't know. The Nationals brought in Jamer Candelario, who had a really down 2022. I think he's a nice little bounce back candidate. Have the Nationals had a legitimate, like, solid third baseman since Ryan Zimmerman was playing third base?
Rendon,
yeah.
But then he went to LA and immediately started to suck because of injuries. So
it's been a while. And they also brought in Trevor Williams for a 2-year deal. He was actually really good for the Mets last year, so he got the chance to start. Good for him. And then we just saw this one today. Ryan Yarbrough signed with the Royals. So they finally made a move.
Yeah, and I'm looking to see if we've got a number on it, but it's going to be low. It's going to be around like $1 million. $3 million with $1 million in incentives. So
there you go. And then do you want to talk about where Carlos Rodon is going to go?
I do. I feel like after talking about the A's, Nats, and Royals, we need to end on something good. Okay. So kind of the biggest free agent that's left, other than the two shortstops in Correa and Dansby Swanson, who we've talked about pretty extensively so far in the last couple weeks, is Carlos Rodon. He's the last big guy on the starting pitcher market. After him, it is a precipitous drop-off to, who did we say was the next best?
I would say like maybe Nate Eovaldi.
Yeah, not really the same as Carlos Rodon. But Rodon he's got a couple suitors left. So the Cardinals are in on him, the Twins are in on him, and the Yankees appear to be the favorites right now. His market is kind of heating up. I kind of expect he's going to sign soon. Supposedly the Yankees are his preferred destination, but the Cardinals and Twins have been offering some substantial sums that could tempt him away. So I guess my question to you is, which of those teams do you like the fit of best, ignoring any biases you have?
I mean, he fits on any team, basically. He's a frontline starting pitcher. I think the Yankees make a lot of sense. I think they got to go add another starter for their team for sure.
Yeah, that's fair. And the thing that I think has been holding up Rodon from signing so far is the fact that he's asking for 7 or 8 years, which
8 years for that guy. We were talking about Brandon Nimmo. This guy, you want to talk about injury history? This is the guy.
Yeah. And we were talking a couple weeks ago, I think maybe 2 weeks ago when we had this conversation, but he's changed his mechanics. It's a lot more repeatable, and it appears to be a lot less stress on his arm. He's now put together 2 mostly healthy seasons.
Yeah, that's the best you can say about him. He did stay healthy all this year. So
yes, he stayed healthy all this year. He stayed healthy for about 3/4 of the year before. This is the best stretch of health that he's had in his career. So you start to say, yeah, 4 or 5 years, it's kind of maybe a risk, but okay, we could see it, kind of like a DeGrom. But now he's asking for 7 or 8, and I think that's putting a lot of teams kind of through the ringer trying to figure out if that's even worth it. Because he is a really, really, really good pitcher. He's only got 2 pitches that he throws most of the time in his four-seamer and his slider. But, I mean, hey, it's working. He's got a changeup. He's got a curveball that he throws less than 5% of the time combined. But
yeah, just as you were saying before, the drop off from Rodon to the next guy is huge, and that's why lots of teams are going to be bidding, and lots of teams are interested because you can't just find this guy on the street.
Yeah. It's not a Randy Dobnak where you just find him driving an Uber.
No, not quite.
But yeah, so I think he's probably the next big free agent to sign. It kind of seems like it's right on the precipice of him making a decision. At which point we'll kind of be just looking for those two shortstops, and then that's going to be the extent of the big exciting stuff.
Yeah, and then I'm kind of hoping when we get to January here, when the big free agents are all signed, then maybe some trades start going down, and we might have some fun with that.
Yeah, that'll be fun. We'll have some fun with that once all the free agents are signed. We'll start having some fun because we're gonna have some time for the first time in a while that we don't have to talk about a lockout.
That'll be nice.
We don't have to talk about why free agents aren't signing. So this is gonna be new.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's what we got for you this week. Probably be back next week to talk to you again. Thank you for listening, and make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and YouTube. Hit the notification bell on YouTube. Let us know your thoughts in the YouTube comments. And on Apple Podcasts, if you leave us a review, we'll be very happy to read it. And Twitter and Facebook at Getaway Day Pod. Leave us a message.
And the TikTok, I am still doing my advent calendar. We've been through 13 days. We've got some pretty interesting polls. We've got a lot of good stuff left. I took a sneak peek at what tomorrow's is. It's going to be a fun one. So make sure to follow us on TikTok as well at Getaway Day Pod. Or it's over on our YouTube. I've been posting them as YouTube shorts. You can check it out there as well.
And with that, have a great night. We'll talk to you next time.